I just didn't want anybody to feel left out or like.
Of course, we want to make sure everyone's here.
Do you want me to share my screen while I type?
Yeah, that would be great.
So, Evelyn, your last name is Anderson, yes?
Yes.
Oh, heavens. So Camry, I was typing up our names yesterday for some reason. And I used to be a nanny, and my little girl's name is Cameron, and she spells it C-A-M-R-Y-N. So I think it was when I was entering everybody's names in my phone, and it auto-corrected to Cameron.
You had to change a name.
And it's not a very common spelling, so it's this is for 360, right?
Yes. I think. I get it mixed up because I'm also taking another class. I'm taking obviously another home and family studies class, and it's family community resources. And the numbers are like very similar, like very close. It's in the 300s. So I get them mixed up all the time.
Understandable.
Oh my goodness, you're okay. You're okay. Sorry, guys. My daughter makes like a bazillion noises while she's eating.
That's okay.
I have a really
happy eater.
Yeah, she is.
All right.
Okay, are we all set to get started?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I guess the first point is to start taking turns about the different points we identified in the, like, from the family therapy session and the reading. So Evelyn, do you want to start with that? See the points you identified?
Well, like I said, I kind of went over chapter 7. So,
Okay.
and let me just find out. Well, in chapter 7, it talks about clarifying ambiguity, and the therapist started right out asking each family member what their understanding of the situation was and what their experience was, and that helped to clarify, first off, why they were there, for the son, and got everyone's different perspective, like the mother's fears and how the dad thought that, she was a little bit overreacting. So that was one of the first things that I noticed. But as far as the chapter 6, to relate it back to chapter 6, I guess it would fall under like communication process and clarifies the information, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, are you talking about on page 108 where it says clear information, clear and congruent messages facilitate all family functioning?
Yeah, well, actually, I was just looking at the table, but yeah, I guess that would be 108. Yeah. Well, the way the chapter 7 did it just kind of didn't go by the same thing. So I may not be much help today because I went a different
No.
direction.
I think that's great. And,
You're
and it might even just meld together because, I mean, the same concepts are talked about in chapter 6.
Right. Yeah.
They're different terms. So what was the chapter 6 term that you used, Evelyn?
The chapter 7 term was clarifying ambiguity,
Right.
but it could be the communication process.
In chapter 6, it's clear information. It's one of the communication and problem solving processes. It says clear and congruent messages facilitate all family functioning.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That was one of the things I noticed right off the bat. And one of the other ones was to normalize the behavior when the therapist was telling Jimmy, you know, hey, it's kind of normal for an 18-year-old to want to spread his wings and not be, you know, kind of helping the parents understand that, you know, this behavior isn't really so out there. It's kind of normal for that age. So I thought that was an important point because, you know, instead of making the kid feel like he's the worst person on earth, even though he probably needs to be more respectful, it was nice to make the parent, to help the parents realize they're not going through something entirely unique. That's kind of a normal that people go through to kind of want to distance themselves from their family. So I don't know what that falls under in chapter 6.
I think that right under the belief system, meaning of adversity.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You kind of don't even. Just the second point says normalize, contextualize distress, common,
Yeah.
understandable in adverse situations.
Sorry. say that again.
So that was those are a couple of points that I found. So if anybody else wants to go.
Kimberly, would you mind muting yourself just for a second?
Yeah.
So, sorry, Cameron, could you say that again?
I was just gonna say, I had something to share for the bullet point just underneath
Okay.
what Evelyn just mentioned.
Okay.
So the positive outlook, I guess, one of the strongest or one of the most prevalent things that I noticed in the family therapy was that the therapist was asking everyone what their concerns were. And as they voiced concerns, he was really good at reframing them
Yeah.
to give them a more positive context, you know. So when he was asking the sister, so why does it frustrate you? And, you know, and he's saying, aren't you, you know, is it because you're concerned, you care for your brother, you don't like seeing him in trouble? And she was like, yeah. And so I thought that brought positivity to what, I guess, about reaffirming strengths and building on potential. Like, he's using the strengths to say, look at each of these family members. They have a lot of the tension is actually coming from a good place of care, of genuine care for you. And so I think that would help to reframe how the son perceived everyone's critiquing of him.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was really prevalent, that he kept reframing and giving a positive context to everyone's concern.
Yeah.
I noticed that too, just to kind of second what you said, that he did do a really great job of that, and that probably helped the family, like not just Jimmy, but the parents and his sister as well, to kind of see where they're coming from, because sometimes you have all these emotions and you don't know where they're coming from, but when someone else can kind of do that, I mean, it probably helped the other family members as well, as not just Jimmy, although it definitely, well, I assume it helped him as well. So I just also noticed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's important that as along with the positive outlook, he was able to rekindle hope, you know, and what it says in chapter 6, it says, "I believe that beneath the turmoil and upset, you care deeply about each other." And you know, one sign is that you actually came in, and I think that's another aspect, that he was giving them hope that, hey, you guys are a good family, and you have strengths. For, you know, your biggest strength is that you want to fix this. So I thought that was good too.
Sorry, I haven't been able to look at my own notes, but as far, we're going to backtrack for a second, if you don't mind. With clear information, with our first bullet point, I was thinking that he had everybody go through and share their feelings and clarify their motives for acting the way that they do. So like when he was asking Mom, well, why does it freak you out or whatever? And she was like, well, because I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's dead. And that's why I'm angry. And anyway, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll just jump in really quick. I also thought that it was important that they talked about ways in the past that they found pleasure in one another, you know, with their camping, and ways that they happier times, you know, before they focused on all these negative things. So he could, you know, remind them that they did have happier times and positive interactions, and how they can draw on that to maybe build on that.
And I think we could tie that to the connectedness, mutual support, teamwork, and commitment. Just to say that they had that connectedness before. And I thought it was even interesting that in the therapy session, you know, he, while talking about the relationship between the son and the daughter, he said something about, now that's not the same sister that you used to go camping with, huh? You know, you're not used to this sister that's so critical, that's a second mom, as he puts it. And so to kind of identify that, yes, the dynamic has changed a lot since then, but remember what was there, that connectedness.
Yeah. One of the other things that I thought was important was between the husband and the wife, and him pointing out the differences, and I don't know what category this falls under, but pointing out the differences between how the women react and the men react. The women react by just exploding, and the men react by just pulling in, you know, and how he could, you know, that gave the mother and daughter and the father and son some shared emotions, how they could relate to each other emotionally. and work on correcting those behaviors, you know. I thought that was interesting. I guess that would fall under open emotional expression somehow. Communication process.
I think that would fall under connectedness too, because like you said, the fact that they do have similar emotional processes probably helps them to relate to each other. And
And then also to respect the differences between the men and the women.
Okay, sorry, I got distracted for a minute because my granny came and took the baby. So has everyone had a chance to share their ideas except me?
Kimberly?
It's too noisy in my house to be able to do so. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Kimberly, do you want to just share your thoughts in the chat? And I can just copy and paste. One thing with emotional sharing, when he was talking about how men and women react differently, I believe it was that then he was helping them understand that they can express love and share their feelings with one another, like, but specifically sharing the love that they used to share. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. I think all of my ideas have actually been covered already. I did note the clarifying ambiguity, how he, made sure everyone's thoughts and feelings were clear, which I think is important. Is important because that was clearly something where they were falling short as a family. They were not communicating clearly. And then, I noted the open emotional expression and the connectedness. So I don't really have any novel thoughts or ideas that haven't already been covered.
So when he had everyone share, like when he had everyone talk about how the situation is affecting them, that would fall under making meaning of adversity, right? Like,
yeah, because they're not just struggling for nothing. They're struggling because they love each other, they love their brother, they want to preserve the family unit. So I would say yes, it definitely falls under making meaning of adversity.
I think he also gave them concrete things to do, like collaborative problem solving, like having the parents pick a date, go on a date, and then having the father commit to spending some quality time with his son where they can plan for his future. And just giving them tangible things to do, which I think is really helpful. And also, one of the things I thought was really important is that he, I gotta find it, diminished blame and shame, accepting the human limitations with compassion, That's what's in that. Where, you know, he kind of reframed the mom's ranting and raging, you know, and helped everybody understand it was rooted in fear. And also even the father, when they, you know, where the father kind of withdrew, and he asked him, you know, about his own father, and his own father wasn't present in their lives, basically, or they didn't have any contact or something. So his father wasn't engaged in his life, and so this father took a more hands-off approach because that's what he knew. And I think it helped everybody kind of understand where everybody was coming from.
Yeah, I think in chapter 6 too, it talks about how you track stressors and distress over time as well, and see how they can kind of like, you know, how they all contribute to the current issue. And I think that might fall under that. It's because they're talking about how, you know, his father, you know, how his relationship with his father affects his relationship with his son. I feel like that could fall under that idea.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so
Sorry, are we talking too fast?
no, I'm just trying to read the chat. Okay, so we'll wait for Bethany. The other thing with collaborative problem solving, the siblings were asked to like go on kind of a date. He was like, invite her out for soda, which is funny because I don't think that I would have ever gone out for soda with my brother, but I don't know. We would have done other things, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think that is a good aspect of collaborative problem solving. Giving them those concrete steps is really important.
Remind me, were the mom and son asked to do anything together?
I don't think so.
So I was thinking about that because they seem to have the most strain.
Yeah.
Like, I know that it might be just a symptom rather than the problem, but I feel like mom and Jimmy, I only remember Jimmy's name. Anyway, so it just seemed that because they have the most strained relationship, considering the circumstances, I would have thought that they would be asked to do something together as well.
Yeah. I wanted the therapist to tell Jimmy to call his parents. The answer is phone.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really that big of a deal. And what did they say?
Tell him to get a job and quit skating. I've had 18-year-old sons.
So one thing that my husband was told by his mission president, like kind of in his exit interview, was to make sure that his home was a place where his kids' friends could come and play. And we've talked about how that includes like always making sure that there's snacks in the fridge, or like making it a place where they would want to come.
Making it hospitable.
And so maybe that, I mean, I know that we're not talking about our own, but that would probably be a good idea for mom to do for her son.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of like get involved more in his social group so that she does have more of an idea of what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the mom's big issue is he's an adult now, and there is nothing harder than trying to parent an adult child. And when they live in your home, it's like I think I'm missing half my tongue because I had to bite it off to keep from trying to parent my kids when they were adults. And it's very, very difficult. And especially if he's living in the home, not working, not contributing. Yeah, I'd be ranting and raging too.
So there's some role ambiguity there. There's some
yes.
Is that a concept?
I don't know I don't think it was in the reading, but it's just something we've talked about in the class.
Maybe we can talk about, we can put that under clarifying ambiguity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the mom's like, well, he's not a kid, but he's still my kid, like,
Right.
he's still here, he's still living here, and so the parent that is, there's some ambiguity there.
Well, I find that there's role ambiguity on both sides, where with the mother not being able to let go and the son vacillating between, hey, I'm going to go skate all day, which is not an adult thing to do, and yet claiming the privileges of adults. So he's
And
not
it's
clear.
a tricky age because it
It
is
is.
very much like I'm an adult now, but
When
I don't
it's
know if they
convenient.
have like the emotional capacity to understand what that means, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If it's convenient for me to be an adult, so I can have my freedom, but Mom, will you still cook all my meals and do my laundry? I've had a few of those. Ugh.
Okay, so I'm looking at the clock here. It didn't tell us how long this meeting needed to be. I assumed we were looking at kind of an hour-ish.
Yeah, I think so.
So I wonder, are there any other points we wanted to discuss, or should we move on to the next question?
I'm good with moving on.
Okay.
Oh, do we have another question? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Megan's screen here. Note the trends of your findings as a group. Did everyone identify the same points, or were there points that not everyone caught?
I think we were pretty on point.
I think we were too. I think we all kind of
between-
caught the same things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we really need to spend much time there, if we want to just move on again.
Do we want to just delete that one?
Yeah.
Or we could just say everyone was on the same page. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, hold on. What does Kimberly say?
Oh, yeah.
Kimberly says, did anyone mention about Jimmy specifically saying he didn't feel his parents cared about him? We didn't talk about that. I feel like that can maybe fall under clarifying ambiguity, because that was something that, like, from what I understood, like, his parents didn't know necessarily that Jimmy didn't feel like he was cared about, unless I missed that, but that was what I was taking away from it.
I actually think that, I agree with that, but I think that was a cop-out on Jimmy's part. I think it was very clear that his parents cared about him.
Well, sure, but sometimes when you're in this situation, like,
Yeah.
your parents are, as a parent, we're thinking, I'm not really speaking from experience here because my daughter's 10 months old, but, you think you're communicating, like my sister. I have this problem with my sister where I'll try and give her advice or whatever coming from a place of caring, but she reads it as like me thinking that she isn't capable or she can't handle what she's trying to do, so like both sides think they're being clear, but they're not necessarily being clear until you get that third party in there. And I think that was what the therapist was trying to do with that, was he was trying to clarify that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think also, though, that kids are master manipulators, and the best way to get a parent to bend to your will is to make them feel guilty. And I just remember one time I was upset with my son because I came home and the house was a mess, and I just blew up. And he said to me, "Mom, it seems like you care more about a clean house than you do about us." And, yeah, I felt really bad about that until I realized, yeah, he's just deflecting the attention off of him and making me feel bad. So I'll back off of him. But anyway, that's neither here nor there for this. I just think that the kid was manipulating his parents.
Well, here's the thing. So he's old enough to know what he wants out of his relationship with his parents. better than say like a 6-year-old. He
Right.
can say, I need you to do this, or love language wise. That's kind of my thing. Like that's kind
I
of
need
where I'm
this
coming
from you.
Like,
Yeah.
my mom and I were talking the other day about somebody when she was raising her children. So when we were younger, somebody had told her that instead of like getting frustrated, to just hold her children. So my baby sister was a menace. Like you told her no, she would claw your face off. Like she was a mean little girl. But one time my mom told her no and she started freaking out. My mom just like held her so tightly, and she said that was like such a profound, like it was just such a sacred experience for her, like what had happened from that. So not to say that he wants them to hug him, but understanding like, okay, well, I need you to trust me to make choices, and obviously it's a compromise, right? We need you to do
Right.
choices. And it's okay that you go out, but maybe make goals to move forward with your life. We would like you to follow the family's curfew, and like we don't mind you having people over. Like understanding the give and take, because the parents probably feel the same way. What do you think? Like you don't think we love you because you don't think that we're showing it, but then the same can be said about us.
Right. Yeah, it's two sides.
Yeah.
There has
Kimberly,
to be mutual respect.
Kimberly in the chat, I don't know if y'all saw it, but she said that it's all about perception. Everyone's perception is their reality, which I think is
True.
very true and very in line with what we're saying here.
Yeah.
Is that they're both perceiving different things, both sides of this situation. And it's tricky. It is really tricky.
Mhm.
Okay. So in terms of our observation, was anyone surprised by anyone's findings or observations?
Not really.
Mm-mm.
No, I
I
think
think we were all in a very similar strain.
I think part of that could be that we're coming from a third party perspective. We're not in the family and we're not the therapist themselves. And so for me, at least, I feel like a lot of the suggestions he made were pretty logical.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So nothing, but like when you're in it, it might be like, oh yeah, I guess we've never,
Yeah.
like, I don't think I would have ever thought of that or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. We're almost like a fourth party.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that's great. Okay. Okay, so discuss and record how a treatment professional or paraprofessional, I'm not sure what the difference is, might prepare to capitalize on such opportunities to introduce or reinforce the types of resiliency factors from Walsh's article. That's the next thing we're supposed to briefly discuss.
I thought he already was. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely did a great job to reinforcing those resiliency factors that we discussed.
Sorry,
You're fine.
I wasn't fast enough.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm trying to read this question over and over again to better understand what it's
I
asking.
know.
Yeah.
Kind of confusing.
Oh, are we talking about Froma?
I think so. Yeah, from a Walsh.
Isn't she's the one that wrote?
She's the one who wrote the chapter that we've been referencing.
Chapters 6 and 7?
Uh-huh.
Okay, because I remember her name from last week's reading, but
Yes.
okay.
So I guess we just talk about like the.
I read it like it's
So basically, like the ideas that help build resiliency, like looking for opportunities and introducing ideas, right?
Yeah.
how the professional might prepare to do that.
Oh yeah, I don't super understand how this is different from the first thing that we were doing.
Okay. So I think in terms
Wait. What about utilizing the questionnaire?
Wilma Walsh, that's where I read it. Okay.
Utilizing the questionnaire used to assess family resilience. I don't know. But they talk a lot about these questionnaires. Or doing the family genograms. That would be kind of preparing, right?
Genogram, like as in their relationship? Like their
Well,
generational relationship?
like they had some examples of the genograms to be able to understand where everybody's coming from and how they see themselves in the family. Like they
Yeah.
had the little girl that drew the family after her parents divorced. She drew a genogram and how it showed her bond was with her dog. And so, you know, if that's how he might, the therapist could prepare by, you know, getting a feel for how the family feels about things by doing a questionnaire, and then having some members diagram do a genogram showing the family dynamics.
Yeah, I think that would be a good way to prepare, like prior to the session,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
get a better understanding of the family system.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Dynamics, I think rules as well, like understanding if we're talking about family systems. I'm assuming we're talking about family systems, but like what explicit and implicit rules there are.
Yeah.
In terms of
Good.
resilience, I don't know how that's related, so never mind.
I wonder if in addition to a genogram and a questionnaire, would it be helpful at all to even just flat out give the family a copy of these key processes listed and ask them to look over those things, and for each family member to identify at least one
That's a good idea.
one of
Yeah.
those principles
Like
that
a
they feel that they
simplified,
will.
a simplified list.
I could see that being helpful.
Yeah.
Because then each person comes into the therapy session with at least one takeaway to say, here's where I think we do well.
Yeah.
And then they go into the therapy session with each person with a little bit of holding on to a strength, or what do they call it? A potential, or to affirm strength and hold on to strength.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So, from a member of the church perspective, and obviously not all patients, clients, whatever you call them, would be members of the church, but I think recommending having a family council
Mhm.
would be beneficial so that they have a platform to express their emotions and like clarify, right? I mean, we've talked about some of these ideas already, like clarifying their perspectives of a situation. And they can kind of have like their own family therapy session.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I think that's a
great.
good idea.
I think that the family council is a great tool, regardless of your religious affiliation. I think
Yeah.
that every family can use that.
Mhm.
I agree. Having a family council, like, because not necessarily do they don't necessarily need to like say a prayer if they don't like believe in that, but like come together as a family and discuss just so they can feel comfortable discussing their grievances and their troubles and and utilize that as a safe place, that there isn't going to be any judgment for what is said,
Mhm.
but that they know that they can air, that they know that mom, dad, and brother and sister are going to hear each other and be there regardless. That is talk about anything and everything that they may be going through.
Yeah. Very good.
I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like a lot of the reading lately has focused on positive thinking, like positive
Mhm.
perspectives. And not to say, I mean, it says specifically just because we think positively doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I'm trying to find where it says it. I'm in the right chapter.
What are we looking for? Sorry,
No, I was thinking about how, okay, so in the page 53 of chapter 3, I highlighted this because I'm actually giving a talk about the joy of service in May. And that's kind of been on my mind, but
They sound really ahead of time.
yeah.
Give you a
The
lot of
idea
time.
is to practice the principle before teaching it. And we don't
Oh.
do things based off of talks anymore because our stake president doesn't want book reports, which I get. So anyway, but I've just been thinking about perspectives, and obviously service changes our perspective, but it says, yeah, a cheerful mindset is not sufficient. Successful experiences and a nurturing context are needed to reinforce a positive outlook. And then in I believe it was chapter 6 that it said that, yeah, there's so many papers, guys. So many. Repeated experiences of futility and failure can lead people to stop trying and become passive and pessimistic, generalizing the belief that nothing they do will matter. I think having hope, I think that's the deciding factor with having a positive outlook, and how that will help develop resilience in a person and in a family. And probably counting their blessings, right? Thinking retrospectively, look at all these things that did work out and consider the attitudes that we had during those times. And then, we know that if we got through that, then we can get through this and we can work together. I just feel like a lot of our reading has been focused on having a positive outlook.
I'll be honest, it's really hard for me to keep my readings separate from all my classes because they all have to do with parenting and family. And is it this class that at the beginning I'm pretty sure it was this class, there's even the cognitive behavioral therapy?
Oh yeah, that's this class.
That is this class.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was just thinking of the whole time you were talking about, like the focus of positivity and such.
Oh yeah.
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 I think you're right. There's been a heavy focus in that.
I think it was my other class though so I'm taking, like I said, the Family Community Resource. I think that's what it's called, something. Anyway, I watched this video called Cypher in the Snow, and it's
The
like
little boy that dies.
very old, like 1980s, and it was talking in there about how negativity can affect not only like our behavior and stuff, but it can negatively affect people's IQ. Like, so over time, it can decrease a person's IQ. So negativity is not a good environment at all. So it's a good idea to like change the negative thoughts and push the negativity out of our life.
Okay, so we are coming to the end of the hour here. Is there any last thoughts we wanted to do? Do we want to look over we've been watching Megan type it through this.
Some magic fingers.
Yes, thank you.
And I think it
Megan.
looks great. But is there anything else we want or need to cover before we call it a day?
I don't have anything.
Good.
I think it looks good.
All right. I think it looks good too. So I'm going to upload the video to YouTube. I'm going to stop the recording real quick.